This is Bo from BEAU'D Not Broken. We're live here with Bryan Jewkes at his palatial estate. No, it's not an estate. It's a beautiful home here in Draper. We come to you every day, Monday through Friday. BEAU'D Not Broken, the Daily Bend show, and it's about people's adversities and how different types of adversities they've gone to help with, help getting through that. And we basically focus on faith and courage and endurance, and how that plays out in that they're involved in. I want to thank Pam for yesterday. Great show yesterday with her. How much she was involved in victims' rights and things like that. That was kind of fun. Today, again, we come to you from Draper. Like every 5 to 6 minutes, I have to station identification. We're coming from Draper, Utah, in the United States, and again, this is a few minutes. I don't know why that's flashing, but I think we're still okay. It would tell me if we're not good. But anyway, Bryan, thanks for being here to a camera. But tell everybody a little bit about yourself and a few of the, a couple of things that you've gone through over the last, several years.
18, 20
years. You go
years,
back 18, 20 years, because I think it's very interesting, obviously interesting story.
Okay, let's see. Married probably 20 some odd years ago. Met this girl, and Jen Jewkes, or Jen Moore.
Right.
She's a very organized girl.
Right.
Had her act together. I was very attracted to that.
Right.
Yeah. And let's see. We got married in '92. Life was going great. I worked the internship for one of the presidents. Worked for the U.S. Supreme Court while my wife was working for the Senate in D.C. Got home. Bought a house.
Two political babies, kind of. Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Bought a house. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. So my background was political science and history.
Right.
And I was a bellman, concierge, did all kinds of stuff. And then my wife kind of pushed me to get a house, and we got a house. And life was going great.
Right.
And,
just go ahead, keep going.
About 98.
I'm prompt to here. Oh, we're good. Okay.
98, celebrating my birthday. It was February 20th. My birthday's a day later, but my parents were killed with my grandparents, or my grandpa and step-grandma, my aunts, uncles.
Wow.
Well, they were with my aunts and uncles. So out of the 10 that were in the vehicle, 6 were killed.
So this was in when 19 what?
This is 1998, February
1998, 20th. They're on a trip.
Yep.
They're all in a truck or a van or a car or whatever it might be.
Big Winnebago.
Okay. And I'm not smiling because I'm happy about it. It's just, this is crazy. So
it looked like one of those, the Anchorman 2. That's what it was. Just like the Anchorman 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So all 6 of them, including your parents, were killed.
Correct.
Just wiped off the face of the earth that fast.
That quick. Well, 5 of the 6 were killed, and then one died later.
Okay.
About a few weeks after the accident.
Okay.
From complications of the accident.
And you were how old? Young family?
No children.
No children.
We were thinking about kids, and
right.
And that was really one of the big wake-up calls for me. One of the biggest fears I had in my life. One of them was, who's going to dress my parents for burial someday? And that sounds really strange.
No.
But I'm one of 10 kids.
Right.
One of the other big fears I had was who was going to be the executor of my parents' estate. Not that they had anything, but I had 10 brothers. Well, there was 9 of us living.
Right.
So I was afraid of who would have to deal with everyone.
Right.
And those 2 big fears came about. I had to dress my parents for burial, and my family elected me executor of the estate.
Wow, you're watching the Daily Bend, and we have Bryan Jewkes here talking about several years ago. His mother and father were killed, aunts, in a car accident, and one of his biggest worries were how is he going to dress his family, his mom and dad when they passed away, and who was going to be the executor. You ended up being the executor. You ended up being able to be the one that gets to dress them.
Well, me and my
right.
sisters,
Take us kind of back to that time. I mean, obviously you weren't happy and excited.
Well, yeah.
Kind of feelings.
Well, I was really close to all of them. I mean, my grandfather, grandmother, and then he was really brokenhearted.
Right.
Met this really nice woman. Her name was Marcella. Really sweet, and it made him very happy.
Right.
And here he met this new woman. They were on a trip, and I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea they were going.
What day was it?
31st.
Your 31st birthday. Okay.
And I got the call. And he first said that one of my aunts were killed, and then someone else, and then he said my parents were killed, and I was just devastated. I couldn't believe it. I almost passed out. So my wife had to call. This is late at night.
Right.
Some friends kind of helped us out and drove us out to family. We got together to kind of have a little talk. Oh yeah, I was devastated. Wasn't prepared for it. I mean, I knew my great grandmother. I mean,
Right.
I know generations, and then to
Right.
lose 2 generations at once was just extremely devastating. That was the basis of, my identification. I was close to my parents. I was close to my grandparents. I was close to my aunts. In fact, those aunts and those grandparents, the grandfather, he actually helped raise me when I was a little boy. My parents were going through my other brother who had cancer at the time.
Wow. Wow.
And so they sent me to Utah from DC to live. And so those family members were ones that kind of helped raise me as a child. So it was all very devastating.
So you lost some people that were really glad. Not that that's not bad enough, but to have, people that you really knew really well that raised you. Was what were in there, or was it?
Yeah.
What were some of the things that kind of kept you sane? I know you probably went through a lot of mourning, but
Yeah.
what one?
Well, a couple of things. I actually had a dream that morning that my mom was going to die, and in the dream she died, and someone else lived in the dream. It kind of gave the whole thing meaning. So when I heard it, I was shocked, but I didn't have. I told my wife. She said that must be devastating.
Right.
And then to have that happen that day was pretty rough. But I do have faith that
Right.
this life is more than just that there's a purpose. And so yeah, my faith got me through. My religion got me through. My wife especially got me through it all.
Right.
And I had very supportive friends, but yeah, my wife was really the sweet. My wife's parents, who basically become my parents.
Right.
My first wife. They basically kind of took me in and have treated me like family ever since.
We're sitting here on the porch at Bryan's home, and it overlooks some area. You can hear us, but also there's a home to I guess that would be the north, and that's your first wife's family right there. Very pretty. You're watching the Daily Bend, BEAU'D Not Broken. We have Bryan Jewkes with us, and he just talked about how he lost his parents and a few loved ones. Hung in there. His first wife kind of hung in there and endured, a lot of things. Now, talk about Jen a little bit. After that happened, from there, so another adversity.
Well, from there it was really tough because she was also someone that wanted me to have. Yeah.
Okay.
And so when they were killed, it was obviously very devastating, and we were also about that time trying to have a child. So we actually had a child 10 months later.
Oh wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, Joe was our grief
baby.
We had a grief baby.
All right.
And it was also a wake-up call for work. She said, when I have this baby, I'm no longer going to be the big breadwinner. She made more money than I did.
Uh-huh.
She was an art director for a publicly traded company, very successful. They were throwing stock at her to stay, and she said, "No, I want to be a mom." So that was another kick me to the curb moment.
Right.
And it's in her journal. It's hilarious. It says, "Today, I told Bryan that I wasn't going to work anymore. I'm scared." Big, to have that laid on my shoulders as the only breadwinner, especially when we were dinks, double income, no kids.
Right.
And I wasn't making very much. She was making quite a bit of money at the time.
Right.
So that was really hard. So that was a big wake-up call. I was actually running quite scared, looking for another job. I got on with Gateway Computers right after that.
Right.
And I was the worst salesman. I was making like $7-8 an hour.
Wow.
Trying to support a family house, 2 cars, and then one day I had someone sit down with me and they said, you know, you need to learn how to sell better. And so I sat down, listened to it, and I went from making $8 an hour to their top sales rep. And I made quite a bit of money, and that was selling home computers over the phone.
How'd that happen? That transition? How did that transition happen in you? I mean, what was it that kind of? Because this is also a show about growing up, and we're always growing. We're always getting, you know, always trying to better ourselves. Was there one thing that obviously the motivation of making more money? But you know, you've got to make some behavioral changes,
right?
too.
I mean, you know, there's those fears that you carry throughout your life, and one is not being able to provide for your family. That was a huge fear.
Right.
And she was literally making. I mean, she was the backbone of what we were doing, so you know, I think she was worried that I was going to kind of rest on that. And so for her to transfer that responsibility to me was it wasn't that I wasn't wanting to be a man and wanting to be able to shoulder that burden.
Right.
It was just that I wasn't getting a lot of opportunities, not with the job, not with the collegiate background I had, not with the I didn't have any experience.
Right.
I didn't have any, you know, skills. I just would, you know, I drank the Kool-Aid. I said, oh yeah, sure, but I didn't believe it.
Right.
And then one day it just hit, and I started doing really, really well, and I got very, very competitive. Let's see, I was working 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then on Saturday I'd work 6 hours, 7 hours, and it became somebody in sales every day.
Right.
And then that got me with outside sales for Gateway, and did that for 2 years. And then the company that I'm working with now, they hired me on, and my wife was, she wasn't very happy because I didn't consult with her.
Right.
But this house, and about that time my wife got cancer. Jen, that was Jen. And it was very interesting because when she found her cancer, she told the doctor that it burned in her breast. And she said it burned, and they kind of dismissed her. They said, well, you know, cancer doesn't burn. And so they dismissed her. And so she came back and she said, well, there's a lump here, and I'm very uncomfortable with this. So they finally pulled it.
So she was telling everybody something's wrong here, the doctors, and they were that's just
doctors dismissed her. They pull it out, and he looks at it and goes, that's just a fibroid. And so the pathologist cuts into it and he goes, hey, this little girl's got cancer. And that was his first reaction. So he came to me and he goes, well, Bryan, I got some good news and bad news. And you probably think this is kind of cruel for a doctor. But I go, well, what's the bad news? He goes, well, your wife has cancer. And I go, what's the good news? And this is his quote. Well, she gets a free boob job. That was her.
She gets a free boob job. Yeah. Nice. You want some good bedside manner, but that's a little bit odd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good news and bad news.
You're going to get a boob job out of this. You're going to get some boobs. Is that what that was?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
You know, no secret. Bryan's been a friend for a long time, but Jen was, you know, like most, you know, we've years. At least my kids live in this same neighborhood, and we watched this, you know, unfold. And after, because we knew your parents had died and other family members, and then you know, years later, Jen gets cancer, and then she had cancer for how long?
Well, she had it from about 2003.
Right.
And then she died in 2009.
Okay.
So she had it for about 6 years.
6 years.
My son, Sam, that's all he ever. In fact, Sam and Joe, they've all, you know, their first.
You guys had 2 boys. You had 2 kids.
Yeah, that's
together.
That's all they knew.
Right. Mom had cancer.
Mom had cancer.
Right.
And that, you know, when they were aware.
Right.
So, but it was interesting because one of the third fears that I had was losing my job. And about a year after my wife's cancer, the company that I'm working for now, they actually let me go.
Okay.
And you know, it wasn't malicious, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's what they call the cosmic kick in the butt. Another one.
All right.
So here my wife has a double mastectomy. We're paying to take care of cancer treatment. I lose my job.
Right.
The cool thing is we had just got the house paid off.
Oh.
We had no debt. And so we had food storage, and literally I got 3 months unemployment, and that was just enough. Each unemployment check was enough to pay for the cancer, the insurance that would cover, because you know they had pre-existing. You didn't want to have a pre-existing because you couldn't get covered. So I got like, it was like 1,000 wives or pay our insurance, and then we lived off our food storage. And
So take us back at that time, because most people will lose their job. Wife has, somebody has cancer, they have no money. Obviously you're worried about getting another job.
Sure. Oh,
but,
I was.
and trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what can I do?
Right. No, I was extremely upset, and I would say like almost frightened.
Right.
Because this time I'm in my mid. I mean, no one's hiring.
Right.
This is close to the when the mortgages start going out of control.
Right.
So as I'm looking for work, I put in my yard, and that was a promise I made my wife.
Right.
So I built these big walls down here. That's what I did we call them the wall of shame.
Right.
And that was it's very cathartic to build them. Not having a job, that was my job. So put the yard in, actually,
Right.
cashed in one of my 4, taking a big risk.
Right.
And then I got a job working for one of my friends. It was a couple of friends that owned a mortgage company.
Right.
Really good guy. And they were very kind to me. Basically what I did is I took my house, all the money that was on my house, and I went out and bought
Houses.
I bought three.
Okay.
I bought 3
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah.
And my wife, she thought I was nuts
Right.
because we didn't have any money coming in.
She's sick and you're nuts.
Well, she's
Yeah.
she's in remission.
Right.
We're paying for the we're making sure our insurance is just out of control, and I'm trying to make enough money. I'm just barely getting enough money to make that monthly payment.
Right.
And I'm running scared. So the first house I get, and I did it through this guy. He took a $5,000 loss on it, and then we put the next loss on the next house, and I think we took a $27,000 loss just on paper.
Wow.
And I finally took the house away from him. He was supposed to be fixing it up, and so I was kind of getting screwed over by people
Right.
taking advantage of me and my. So the third house I bought through this guy, I actually did the whole thing myself. And they were paying us $1,500 a month to live in it, and then we had some people living in it, and that was enough to help pay for my insurance.
Oh.
So that was going, and then they called me up, and they said they were getting divorced, and I had told them in advance. They were an older couple. I said, "Now you have to pay. If you don't pay, I have to sell the house."
Sure.
But that was the other thing. So here I have all of these liabilities sitting out. My wife's, I'm worried about my wife. I'm worried about a job. I don't have a job. I've got these houses.
Right.
And so they told me they're getting divorced. So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to have to take the house back. And they had been in the house 30 years.
Right.
So I was underwriting it for them.
Right.
So they could live there and then buy it back.
Right.
And they just decided to leave. So literally, I put a sign in front of the house. It was up in Sandy. As I'm driving home, the house sells. So all the money I would have made the year before in the company that let me go, I made.
You're watching the Daily Bend. We're talking to Bryan Jewkes about. We're talking about adversity, but yet all the little good, some adversities that remind us that we can still kind of push through some of the things that we do. And so, sick, the times making all of a sudden, after a couple of failures, kind of a success. Continue on.
From the last company, he called me back about the same time I'm selling the house, and he goes, "Hey, I'd like to hire you back." And I said, "You let me go?" He called me a week later. He said, "Hey, I'll pay you your old wage plus I'll pay all of your medical and dental." And I'm like,
Right.
that's great. Same time that house is closing, I got this money all coming in.
Right.
No debt,
Right.
money in the bank, and I got my job back.
Right.
And now I have these new skills that they wouldn't have let me go. Oh, yeah.
Right. Right.
So then I started in this company, and it was kind of a new, the old company, and we started getting contracts, government contracts, but the problem was we hired too many people, and they were money from.
Talk a little bit. I know you can name the cut. Talk a little bit about what you do, because you guys are motivators. You're people that you talk about leadership.
Yeah.
And all that kind of the diverse part of leadership and how everything
Right.
their styles are different.
Right.
Talk to that before you talk about
Well-
Jen's death and then.
Oh, okay. Well, what we do is, and it's Shipley Communication.
Okay, Shipley.
And David Graff is the president. He started the company, and
Right.
he's the one that called me in. And we do, we have a personality type tool.
Okay.
And what we do is we apply it to leadership, communication, diversity, any type of application, anything
Right.
that has to do with people.
Okay.
So we do a lot of military training, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. We do reserves, National
Right.
Guard. We've got, we work with people that come from the reserves, the National Guard. So in Hamilton, we've got police officers. We have people in the banking system. So the word gets spread out
Right.
as well through different organizations. So sometimes that has a lot of cool collateral.
So you guys have a really good product that you've been able to kind of morph over the years and keep it going and keep it very, I guess you would say, movement-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, talk a little bit about Jen's death and that part, and you're kind of moving on in your life.
Right. So
She's in remission, or
she's in remission. We think that
Okay.
cancer's gone.
Right.
We don't have a lot of money at this time. I mean, we're making money, but Shipley's not doing so great.
Right.
When you start a new company, even though it's kind of an old platform, we had to restart everything. It's a new company, new people.
Right.
So I decide that I'm going to take my wife to Europe. And I don't have the money to do it, but I have a little bit of savings. So I said, I don't care. I'm taking her.
Right.
So this trip is going to take us from Paris to London, back to Paris, then to down through Geneva, out to Zurich. That's the trip. I got it all planned. And we're going to be driving, taking the part of it because I was working outside of Paris in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So I take her because I, again, one of the greatest fears I have outside of losing my job, not being able to take care of people. Losing my wife is a big fear, especially
Sure.
after losing my parent. It's something that scared them.
For those that are joining us, or for those that haven't been on, this is all live stuff. So we're talking about adversities. We're talking about Bryan's loss of his wife's sickness or illness of cancer, and leading up to a trip to Europe.
Yeah. So we go to Europe. Things are going great. The same. We've gone out to. In fact, we took a trip out to Versailles. And we get back from Versailles off a bus. And my wife's on it right now. Paris is famous for having the transportation people
Right.
going on.
Right.
What do they call that when they go on strike? They went on strike,
yeah.
so there's no way to
Strike.
get around Paris.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you got to take, you got to take a tour bus to get around because
Right.
everything's shut down. So we're standing just off the Seine. There's this place right off the river, and it's a bridge. And every time I think about it, it's kind of a shock to me.
Right.
That's where I grabbed her, pulled her close to me because someone was trying to ride down, and she goes, "Oh, you hurt my rib." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Well, she said,
Hurt my rib.
You hurt my rib. I'm like, "I'm not that strong."
Right.
But she's feeling this pain. So anyway, we go back towards our hotel. We have to catch that channel train the next morning, and she's not feeling good.
Right.
She's in pain, and so we take the channel train to London. The first thing we do in London is we're there. We go to the restaurant. One of my favorite pubs down there is called the Bell. It's like 450 years old.
Right.
We take this bus tour around London, and there's this place just off of Baker Street, not too far from Madame Tussauds. And I remember them saying in the bus tour that if you want to ever see a doctor, if you're from London,
Right.
you have to pay extra money. And
Right.
I'm just listening to this. And he goes, well, the rumor goes that you see one specialist, and that specialist gets another specialist making money. Well, I'm listening to this, and by the time we get back from the tour, we get back to the hotel, and my wife can't sleep. She's in so much pain.
Oh, wow.
So we finally just radiologist there in London.
Right.
And so I went down that street, just off Baker Street, and we find this doctor, and we go in, 500 pounds for her,
Right.
and then she brings another specialist in for another 250 pounds. And at the time, the exchange rate was $2 per pound.
Right.
So it was $1,000.
Wow.
We had to see doctors. And I think they knew the gig was up. Jen could see that there was a fracture in her rib, and I go, I wasn't that strong.
Just from
Having her and pulling her close, and then she, I think she knew something was up. I think the doctors knew something up, but I was clueless.
Right.
So it's like, I was a little. Continued our trip, went back to Paris, got a car, drove through Geneva, hung out with some friends there. Decided to go to Interlaken. It was great. We tried to talk them in. We had a great seat. We had a window. We had an exit seat. But since my wife's rib was hurting, they moved her back in the back with this guy while I was sitting in the
guy
door.
like me.
Yeah.
Guy like me.
So we got back. I had to go do a gig with the Navy down in Cornwall Beach. beach and she calls me. She said, Bryan, the PET scan came back. I'm going to die. And I was just...
So cancer's back.
Cancer's
and
back.
it's taken over.
It's got fractured or broken. No, it wasn't really broken, it was just fractured. It's because the cancer is throughout her bones.
Okay.
So I'm beach it's a military beach, so there's no one there.
Right.
And it's dark and it's cold. It's like December, January, and a big shocker to me because we didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming.
You thought everything was in remission, everything was gone.
Cancer. Her survival rate's like 72%.
Yeah.
To use a certain type of treatment for chemotherapy at 79. I think we went to lower because we figured it wasn't a big
So
deal.
after that, how long was it before she died? Was it very?
We found that out in 2007. I think it was 2006, 2007, and she was dead by May of 2009.
Okay.
So it was about a year and a half or so.
Right.
But when the doctor, I went in with her, when I got back, we went into the doctor to sit down and talk to the doctor about the options.
Right.
And the doctor said, well, any cancer treatment I give you now is, number one, for certain types, it's palliative, like for pain.
Right.
And the other one is to maybe prolong your life a little bit longer. That's it. And but it's going to be chemotherapy and it's going to be rough.
Right.
And so she went into the bathroom and just thought about toothless. She called him Toothless Sam at the time. I said, my youngest son. And she just thought, I got to live for Sam. I got to live a little bit longer for my youngest. But she just sat in the bathroom and cried, and that was kind of her decision. She'd go through the chemotherapy is a horrible experience.
About losing his parents, losing his wife, and then kind of the silver lining in him being able to find another woman that might be able to, continue on through life with, and all that kind of stuff. That happened a few years after Jen's death, right?
Well, it's funny. After Jen died, I guess I was devastated.
Right.
But I ended up. I remember talking to my mortician. He buried my parents.
Right.
And then he buried my wife. And
Right.
they were talking. They said, "So, what are you looking for? Are you going to get married? What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, this is what I'm looking for." But and he pulls me aside and goes, "Hey, I know this might sound inappropriate, but I've got a girl that her husband just died, and she's got 4 kids, and I think you should meet her." And she actually lived up by my friend over in Daybreak.
Right.
And we started dating. We almost got married. And she's just a great girl, wonderful girl. But it kind of helped me make that transition from losing someone to getting someone. But I'd never lost anyone. I know, other than to death, I'd never had a girlfriend and lost a girlfriend.
Right.
So I even went through losing a girlfriend and that pain of because I'd never been through the high school heartache. And
Bryan's amazing story of losing his parents, family members, the adversities of jobs, losing his wife to cancer a few years ago. He's been able to remarry, all that kind of stuff. His boys are growing up. Maybe quickly a little philosophy of life. I mean, because you've gone. I mean, there are people out there that have gone through the death of many family members, or one or two. But to stay positive, to stay focused. What do you tell somebody that's grieving or has grieved or may need to grieve here soon?
Yeah, well, I mean, I went through that going through girlfriend, but then I did meet the girl that and I dated her for 2 years, and we got married just a year and a half ago, and I mean, the thing is I remember sitting in the bathroom when my first wife died, and I was thinking, okay, I could give up, and everyone would be sympathetic. You've lost your parents, that was hard, you lost your job, you lost your wife, and my in-laws, I philosophically, or theoretically, I bet my current in-laws, or my first wife's parents, would probably have taken me in and let me just live there in the basement. And everyone would have felt sorry for me.
Right.
And we would have lost this business. My kids would, feel sorry for their dad, and things. And as I was sitting in the bathroom thinking, you know what, my first wife, she would come back and haunt me or kill me if I did something like that. So it wasn't. I said, why would you give up after working this hard? Because right when my first wife died, our company started doing better. In
Right.
fact, it started doing a lot better. Being almost bankrupt. I mean, financially we were, but since we were a cash-only business, we didn't have a lot of credit. We just had people that we owed money to.
Right.
And we took that and we went from having all of this debt to the company doing well. And I think in the back of my mind, I hear this voice: you can't give up. Life will get better. Just because you have really bad things happen doesn't mean that really good things won't happen too. And I have to tell you, I mean, I loved my first wife dearly. I didn't think I'd find another one, and then I ended up meeting someone that I could love and that I could care about and that would love me. And you know, so you have to have hope. And you have to, you know, I sometimes say that I'm just too stupid to know any better, but it's the same with our company. You know, sometimes I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to keep plodding away at
Right.
it and not give up. And I think that's the key. Don't give up. Be positive, and know that there's going to be something better. I mean, and know that there's going to be something. I don't want to say always better, but something as good.
Right. Right.
So, you know, because sometimes when you find something you think is just perfect, you know, a lot of people do give up.
Right.
They said, well, you know, I've lost this, or I've lost this, and it'll never be this good, so they just give up.
Right. And that's what we're trying to do on this show. We're trying to give people hope, show people that have gone through adversities and, you know, perseverance and endurance, and that's what we talk about. We talk about faith and courage and endurance and hope. Really, that breeds the hope. Bryan, thanks for being on my little show, and you know, I've known you for a long time, but I've wanted people to know your story, and it really is amazing, because I admire you so much for what you've gone through, and I appreciate you know, being very candid. For watching, and we'll see you tomorrow again for another show. Remember, you can go to BEAU'D Not Broken, the website. So they'll be on there to see. They'll be on Facebook and all the other social media sites. Again, Bryan Jewkes. Make sure you watch. If you weren't able to watch the whole show, or just a little bit, or none of it, I hope you'll take a look at it on those sites. And then I walk around the table like there's nothing going on, and then I swipe down and we stop.